Okay, for today, you have big, honking, nasty problems, but there's only like 5 for homework. There's only 5 problems for homework because they're big and nasty and scary. But they're not that bad. It all boils down to either synthetic or long. And so I want to talk about when you could use synthetic and when you could not. If I asked you to put in this into synthetic instead of long, could you put this into synthetic? Yes, you could. And how would you? Well, you'd make your little box like this and draw a line like this. Everybody try to set it up. See if you know how to set it up. If you don't know how to set it up, then watch me in a second. I'll set it up. Since I see like 7/8 of you writing, I think that means you mostly know how to set it up. Okay, so you put in a -1, not a 1. How many of you remembered that? Raise your hand if you did. That's almost everybody. Good. And then that needs a 1 and a 4 and a 3. Did anybody didn't figure out a smarter way than what I just did? Ah, why? Why do you have to add in zeros? That's right. There's no x cubed term. There's no x squared term, and there's no x term. So you need 3 zeros. 1, 4, 0, 0, 0, 3. Okay, so it had a little trick to it, but you could use synthetic to set it up. Everybody give this one a shot and see if it actually works now. Remember that Snoop Dogg taught us how to start these. Take that first one, just drop it straight down. I see a lot of people start wrong. Somebody last hour was asking me, why am I doing this wrong? Because he wasn't dropping the first term down. Drop it like it's hot. Then, you got to multiply. Then, you got to add straight down. Then, you got to multiply. And that's this times this. You always are multiplying by -1. 3 times -1, -3. Now multiply by 0, 0. Now multiply by -1, 0. And then there's this 0 festival here. They're all zeros because when you multiply by zeros, you get 0. Now I finally got a 3 at the end. Now, what does that mean? Uh-oh, did I do something wrong? I did, you're right. There will be a bunch of zeros still, but here, sorry. When I add those down, 0 and -3 make -3. And then I times by -1, and that makes this one positive. 3 times -1 makes, maybe there is a potential for this one. 0 times 3, or 0 plus 3 is 3, and then that makes this -3. I'm sorry, I really messed that one up. And then add down -3. I thought all those zeros were going to keep carrying, but once I made one mistake with my 0, all the rest followed after that. And then this one made +3. So it actually did work, right? 3 plus 3 is 6. All right. So now, moral story. Does x plus 1 go into all that other stuff? No. And I figured out that -1 is not a root. That's another way to say it. That's not a factor, and that's not a root. Get that? Okay. So your assignment is going to be problems like that. But when can I not use synthetic? Like, I'd rather do synthetic every time, but can you think of a way, a thing that would make it so a synthetic couldn't work? Stretch your mind. What? No, that just means you'd use synthetic, and then it just means that the answer wasn't a factor. So I just did synthetic, even though there was a remainder. Yes? For what? If this had to be like an x squared, you're right. So if they asked you, does x squared plus 1 go into this, you couldn't do it. You'd have to use long division. So you still need to know long. I wish I could say that from now on you'll only use synthetic. You can whenever you can. So in other words, if there's a problem that with synthetic will work, do it. It'll be faster. But there's problems like this, where does x squared plus 1 go into x to the 5th plus 4x to the 4th plus 3? All right, try this with long division and find out if it works or not. Now, it'll work all the way to the end. And the only question is, at the end, does it come out with a 0 at the end, or is there a remainder? All right, so what was wrong with the way I had it set up on the board? And some people might have just copied that and thought, oh, I'm done. What's wrong? Yes. The zeros to hold the place. So this should have had a 0x cubed plus a 0x squared plus a 0x, and then what was the last number? 7? What was the last number? 3? Thank you. Okay, there we go. That was the right way to do it. Now, still, using that technique, can anybody, did it work? Yes, sir. It did not work, and that's very good. It wouldn't have ever worked unless you put in a placeholder in there, too. And now it still won't work. You're correct. But, moral of the story, watch for placeholders. They can be in both parts. All right, here's how you would have started. At the minimum, you would have said, I need an x to the 3rd here, so that when I take this times this, I will get that. Okay, so that becomes x to the 5th. And then I take x to the 3rd times the 0x is 0x to the 4th. X to the 3rd times the 1 is plus 1x to the 3rd. Then I go through and change the signs on everything. Negative, negative, negative. Those cancel just like I wanted them to. Those two, just 0, it means the other one stays the same. 4x to the 4th. And then this is minus x to the 3rd. Now, do I need to bring anything down? Yes, I do. This has 3 terms, so this needs to have 3 terms. So I bring down a 0x squared. Now, I ask myself, what do I put here so that I'll get this? And it comes out to a 4x to the 2nd. How many got those first 2 terms right? All right, that was down to only half the class was doing it exactly right. So I get, this is tough, and that's why there's a very small number of problems today. So I'm going to give you time to work, but I'm going to do one more with you in class to kind of get you started. And then I'll give you a bunch to work time to work together. I'm going to pause for a second while I pull up the homework for today. So here's the worksheet. I'm kind of zoomed in a little bit. That's good. It gives me more room to work. It's called 7.8 extension. That's what it says up here if you're following along at home. 7.8 extension. Extension means they like stretch problems. Now, could this one, judging by looking at the problem, could that one be done with synthetic? Yes. Now, the directions do say that you're supposed to do them in synthetic and long, but frankly, that's a little bit cruel. So I'm going to say, whenever you can use synthetic, go ahead and use it. And in this case, we can use synthetic on A. So let's do the synthetic on that one together. So we start by putting a -7 in the little box, and then we have, look for missing terms first. Do you see any missing terms in this one or not? Nope, nothing missing. So I go 1, 9, 15, 12, 35. Draw the line. Yo, Snoop, how do I start? Drop it like it's hot. Multiply by that. -7. Add those. 2. Multiply those. Add those. Keep going from there. Try it. Yes, sir. Do we have to write out the factors? Yes. Yes, it's a good question. I'm going to show you another page of directions that tell you exactly what I want you to add to these problems. which is basically just that I want you to write it out, factored form, and then I want to know what the real roots are. All right, so I'm going to keep going here, and this multiplies, makes -7, that adds, makes 5, that multiplies -35, that adds to 0. Cool. So I put a little line here because this thing is just the remainder. It doesn't really count in my answer. Yes, you have to write this, x plus 7. Notice I changed that sign. And then I put a parenthesis around this. I make this an x squared, and this an x cubed. It's kind of good if you write big so you have enough room to, like, write. So then this is a plus, and that's a plus, and that's a plus. Okay. Now, next question. Can it be factored any further? I'm going to rewrite this out clearer. X to the third plus 2x squared plus x plus 5. No, we wouldn't know anything that would go into those things. We wouldn't have any way of knowing what to check. You know, like we could do long division if I just told you what to check. That's what I'm going to ask you to try to figure out tomorrow. But there's my final answer then. It's factored as far as I can get it. And then, can you see any of the real roots? This one has a real root. What is it? Not 7. Don't say 7. What is it? -7. So the real root is -7. I could have known that by looking here too. So there's one real root. How many roots is this supposed to have? Take a look at that and it'll tell you the answer. It's supposed to have 4. Because if it has an x to the 4th, then it's supposed to have 4 roots. We're going to teach you tomorrow how to go further than that. I'm going to ask you to try to explore and figure out how you can go further. I will give you some hints. Okay, so this next one, I want to warn you. You cannot do it with synthetic. Some people think, well, I want to use synthetic, so I'm just going to check a 1. See, they look at this and go, oh, I'm just going to use -1. Doesn't work that way. That's much more complicated. In fact, it needs placeholders in it even to do it. So you have to use that, or it's not synthetic, long. So it goes like this, x to the 4th plus 0x to the 3rd plus 0x squared plus 0x plus 1 goes into x to the 6th plus 7x to the 5th minus x to the 4th plus x squared plus 7x minus 1. That's a nasty long division question. Now, you're very likely to make dumb little mistakes. So, I'm going to put you in a group, and I want you to work with that group of, I'm going to put you in groups of 3, and you guys can work together, and hopefully you'll be able to like check each other. All right? When you were working in a group of 3, you're expected to share. It's not okay for you to just forge ahead and go way past everybody else and like have them ask you the answers and stuff. Work together on these. All right. Now, given that, I'm going to allow you to, if you find a group of 3 for yourself within the next 2 minutes, starting in a minute, then your group of 3 sits together, pushes desks together, and if you're in a group of 3 by yourself, awesome. If you're not within 3 minutes, I'm going to put you in a group of 3 because I want you in groups of 3. Okay? All right. So find your group of 3. Get up, move, and sit by them. That's all I have for the video for today.